Hey friends, today I want to talk about a topic close to my heart. I've been very lucky over the years. I've been able to submit talks to and talk at a variety of conferences, as well as also actually be invited onto the agenda committee. So I've been able to see from both sides of the table, as it were, kind of some things that make a difference when you want to speak at something. So today I want to share with you my top 5 tips for submitting a great talk. Let's get started. So tip number 1 is setting the scene. What I mean by this is that you want to have 1 or 2 sentences to start off your abstract that are going to capture the attention of not only the agenda committee, but the attendees who might also come and watch your talk. So for this video, we're going to use an example of an abstract I wrote recently. Now, I'm not saying I'm an expert, but we're just going to, apply my tips to the sections in my abstract so you can see what I mean. So in this talk, it's all about a blood pressure app that I've written. And so the first couple of sentences that I wrote in my abstract is this. Data is everywhere. I recently saw a log of the blood pressure and pulse readings from a friend, and it got me thinking about whether or not we could display this information in a nicer way than just a piece of paper or an Excel spreadsheet. Maybe we can build in some nicer features such as viewing the history or trends over time, and even visualising what's going on with some pretty graphics. So you can see there that I've set the scene. I've explained why I started to think about building an app, and the fact that the sheet that I got sent got me thinking about the information. So now we've set the scene for how you came to the topic that you chose to talk about, we come on to tip number 2, which is explain what you'll cover. So this is pretty self-explanatory. You want to give attendees an overview of what it is that you're going to be talking about. Again, it's only 1 or 2 sentences, but it just gives them an opportunity to see, what might be of interest to them in the content. You're not going to give away too much of what's going to be in there. You just want to give them an idea of what might happen. So in the abstract for this talk example that I'm using, the bits that I went over what we'll cover is where I said, this is where my blood pressure tracker app was born. In this talk, I will show you the app and how I use the power of MongoDB from Atlas to Realm to Charts, combined with the cross-platform power of Xamarin to create an app to log and track this data. I will also discuss some future plans I have involving Apple's HealthKit and more. So, as you can see, pretty straightforward. So now you've talked about why you've come to discuss this topic. You've also talked about what you're going to talk about with this topic. So we move on to tip number 3, which is what attendees will learn. Now, this might not necessarily be anything in depth because it might be that it's not quite such a technical talk, for example, but you just want to give the attendees to your talk, the takeaways that they'll get from listening to you, because sometimes that can be what helps them decide, okay, I'm going to go and watch this talk. In the talk example I'm using, because it's a shorter talk, I in fact don't go into too much detail technically in terms of what they will learn, but it's more of a feeling takeaway. I put, you'll go away feeling inspired to do fun but powerful things with your data. If you're writing a technical talk, this might be more specific, so it might be you'll go away knowing how to get started creating your first project in Xamarin Forms, or it might be you will know techniques for checking for accessibility, features and support in your applications and websites. The idea is you just want to give them some clearly stated takeaways that make it sound like it might be interesting to go and listen to you. In the final 2 points, I want to move away from concrete tips for your abstract to some more general points based on things I've noticed. So tip number 4 is don't state any of the above in notes and comments of the organiser. One of the most common platforms used for collating and evaluating submissions to events is Sessionize. And in Sessionize, when you submit your talk, as well as putting the abstract and some details about yourself, you can also make some notes and comments. Now, the idea for this is for more practical things such as I will be playing a video in my talk that has sound, so I will need to be able to have sound. That just means that if your talk is submitted, the organisers know to make sure that wherever you end up in the agenda, the room that you're speaking in has the correct equipment. It can also be used for more sort of personal things, like maybe you want to give some more background to a talk, but it doesn't need to go in the abstract for a reason. And that's okay in notes and comments, but things like what technology you'll be using, or I'll be doing X, Y, and Z, things that would be interesting to the attendees that might help them decide to attend your talk, shouldn't go in the notes and comments of the organiser, because they just won't make it into the abstract. That's not what they're there for. So please, if you're going to submit a talk, just make sure that things like that go in the abstract so that everyone can benefit. And here we are onto our final tip. And this might be one of the most important of all. So tip number 5 is to proofread your abstract. One of the things that I see far too often is that people clearly haven't proofread their abstracts. Now, I appreciate that for a lot of people who are submitting, maybe English isn't your first language. And even if English is your first language, it's not an easy language. Nothing is perfect. But a lot of the time, if you proofread your abstract a couple of times, you will spot things that you didn't the first time, like typos. On top of that, there's tools out there to help you with things like the grammar and the wording, like Grammarly. Grammarly is a great tool. You can get it as a Chrome extension. So there's no reason to have mistakes in your submission. The thing you have to remember is that it's not the organiser's job to fix up your abstract once you've submitted it. So what you're submitting is going to end up on the agenda sheet for the event, and you want your abstract to be in the best standard it can be. So if you take any tip away from this, please let it be number 5, proofread your abstract. So there we have it, friends. 5 tips for submitting a great talk. I don't claim to be an expert on the matter, but these are just some 5 tips I've noticed over the years which I think really help. If you've got any tips yourself from things that you've witnessed or learned over the years with your own talk submissions, then please leave them in the comments below and I would love to learn from them. So, bye friends!